Hello everyone. So this is the first video that I'm recording for the community that's not a live, that's not a Q&A, it's just me. And today's topic I think will be very fascinating. It is about the relationship between men and women and premature ejaculation. I know that's kind of very strange, but it can also sound like it's like mostly for men. But again, it's actually interesting for both men and women because there's a lot of layers to this. So, everything that I talk about comes from my own exploration, me daring to go and see things within myself that are very scary and going deeper and deeper and deeper and seeing more and more. And so, of course, everything that I share is coming from my direct experience. So, basically, what I've discovered is that the reason why premature ejaculation, which by the way is very common, right? Like in movies, it's like the guy, in 1 minute or less is done, and the woman is left there like not pleased at all. She was just getting started. And so premature ejaculation is actually a result of the psyche in a man having a giant amount of fear and hatred towards the female. And I say the female because that's what the mother is, right? The most important female in a boy's life is the mother, right? And so she's a female, and therefore the more wounds are created from that female, and it could be also grandmother, it could be any woman that's around, an aunt, it could even be an older sister that maybe was extremely mean to you, something like that, right? And so when the female in a little boy's life, there's a lot of things that are happening that are creating hatred and fear in the boy. So when a woman maybe is very aggressive, right? Imagine a mother being aggressive with a little boy and the boy's like terrified out of his mind. That's recording or wiring into his brain. Women are very dangerous. Be careful. They're terrifying monsters, right? Like in the psyche. And also forcing you to do things that you don't want to do. And there's a lot of cases in which, let's say a mother is forcing her son to do something, and it's not really that important. But funny, I mean, I can go into open many tabs. But another theory that I have, this could be another video, is that a mother that had, the mother is a woman. When she was a little girl, she had a father, and the father was extremely abusive and mean and was just a source of everything that's bad. She hates men. She hates the male. I always say the female and the male because it's like any person that is in that category. So if a mother, when she was a little girl, was treated so poorly by her father, she hates all men, all males. And therefore, when this woman has a son, subconsciously, she looks at the son and sees the father because it's just another male. And so her mistreatment of her own son is actually a subconscious desire to basically, harm the father because the father harmed her so much, right? So I opened that tab just to make that very clear. So going back to, let me bring myself back, going back to the premature ejaculation, which comes from a deep hatred of women and a lot of fear. The other thing I wanted to add is there are men who don't experience premature ejaculation. They can have sex probably for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and they still might hate women, right? So in that case, I would just say that it's the degree of psychological damage. So the man that doesn't have premature ejaculation could hate women, but it's significantly less somehow. Maybe the abuse was less compared to this other person that does experience premature ejaculation. Now, let me just think here because this is a really interesting topic. I want you to think about what's actually happening when there is a woman, right? There's a couple and they're about to have sex, and the man, so they're having sex, there's penetration, and suddenly in a minute, the guy can't control, the body just does it, and he ejaculates, and it's done, right? What I actually want you to see there, this is what I've seen in my exploration with pornography, is that, so let me talk about pornography for a second, because I guess that's also very prevalent in the world. It's the same thing, whether it's real sex or, looking at an image of sex. So where was I going with this? What I noticed in my exploration with pornography is that for a very long time, for most of my life, since puberty, when I didn't know any of this stuff, it was completely covered up. Looking back now at 15 years old, 16, 17, 18, right, and looking at and masturbating at porn, what I discovered is that my whole intention going into, like, getting the computer, I have to search for something that really turns me on, a really hot woman. What I noticed is, first, I'm even kind of thinking about it now, like it's the first time. So I was probably at school and I saw a lot of attractive girls. And so immediately you have that sexual urge, right? You basically wish you could have sex with them, but you can't for many reasons. And then you go home and you want to relieve yourself of this thing, right? This buildup of sexual energy. But here's the strange thing with this premature ejaculation thing. I would go into it with the entire intention of masturbation was to end it. Literally, my entire psychology related to this thing was, I need to find a video so that I can get to the very end of it, meaning to ejaculate, so that this can be over, right? Of course, I didn't know I was doing this. So think about how insane this is. This is supposed to be something incredibly pleasurable. If something is insanely pleasurable, ending the pleasure is the last thing on your mind. You just want to like swim in it, and you just want to be in it for as long as possible. So this is the psychology. This is what's happening in the psyche of every man that has premature ejaculation, and he, watches porn and he comes very quickly. There is this first element. So it's very odd to think I'm going to find a video, but my whole energy is like, I need to get to the end. So if you think about it, when you're masturbating, you're literally like, I want it to end. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I need it to end. I don't want to be here. So that's a very interesting thing. I think most people have never heard that before. Now here's the second element. If that's true, and again, it could be for sex with an actual person or pornography. If a man, so a boyfriend, girlfriend, they're about to have sex, and then the guy comes very quickly. Well, wait a minute. What I just described is the same thing that's happening in that moment. And it's very strange because it feels and looks like the man really loves it, right? And on some level he does. That's why it's like, oh my God, let's do it. Let's have sex. But it's a very strange thing to notice that if the body by itself is literally saying, enough, stop, just stop. And then the body just ejaculates to basically end what's happening. It is so that you can spend as little time as possible so close to this woman. So I think this is really, really fascinating to see. That everything in life, in this human experience, no matter how silly, how unspiritual it seems, everything is spiritual, everything is deeper than it looks. Nothing is as it seems. And so, just to say it one more time, premature ejaculation is when even the body, the whole brain is wired to say, yeah, you can't get rid of the sexual attraction. So what you're going to do, it's like I'm describing the body speaking. What you're going to do is you're going to go in there, you're going to have sex, but it's going to end as fast as possible because you need to get away from this woman that you hate and you fear, right? Let me think of, there was one more thing that I wanted to share about this. Even things that are not sexual. So the relationship, so this shows a big part of the relationship that the man has with the female, with all females, right? But there are also the other elements of not listening to the woman, right? So she's sharing something, you're not even listening, you're tuning out. That's another symptom of deep hatred. Very, very interesting, deep resentment. And what comes to mind is when I describe these things, sometimes they sound weird, but I have to describe them. So imagine that the little boy would share things with his mom or try to share things, and she was just completely not interested. And that hurt so deeply, to not be seen, to not be heard, over and over and over, until the boy just gives up, right? It's been wired into the brain. Don't even try. They don't care about you, right? They couldn't care less about you. And so there's also immense resentment in that. Why doesn't the most important woman in my life want to hear what I say, want to see me, right? And so the deep resentment that is wired into the brain when you're a child and a teenager dealing with your mom until you leave, that's all there. And so what I want you to see is that it starts with the mom, or whoever raised you, right? The people that were around you, but the females I'm talking about. And it's sort of like females, resentment, right? Hatred. And also if they frightened you as a little boy, right? If a mother frightens the boy, her son, there's also fear. And so that's a lot of emotional pain that's stuck there. And when you look at your girlfriend or you look at your wife, it's an odd thing because you think she looks nothing like my mom. She's not my mom at all. She's completely different, but she's a female. And the damage was so deep that the brain says you have to be very aware of this. It has to be something very strong in your experience. Women are dangerous, never forget that. And you hate them because they can't be trusted. They treat you poorly. They don't want to hear you. They don't want to see you. And so I think what I'm sharing makes it very clear why relationships don't work. And it's just pure chaos because you have, I'm describing the man a lot, but then you'll have the woman who had an emotionally unavailable father. And so that's what was wired into her brain as normal. It's what she knows how to navigate. I know how to navigate to be around a man who is emotionally unavailable, who doesn't have time for me. So she then is attracted to a man who is also that way, but she doesn't like it, of course, because that's awful, right? So it's just a huge mess. But yeah, I think it's very interesting to see this stuff. And I guess the last thing I can say, this is more towards men, is if you experience premature ejaculation, basically it's a very long process. It involves facing fear after fear every time you're going to search for porn and you're going to masturbate, because you're doing something that your brain is saying, I don't have information about this. I don't know how to deal with this. So you're basically in a very long process changing your psychology so that it goes from, I need to get away from women as fast as possible. It's crazy to say, it's like, I need this orgasm, but I need it like so fast so that I can get away from the woman because I hate her and I fear her. And so what you're trying to do, whether it's with pornography or with your actual partner, is the first thing that will change. I mean, all of this information is bringing you this newfound awareness, but it begins with an intention. And the intention is, when I go into this, whether it is pornography or actual sex, I'm going into this and I want to be here as long as possible. And I'll think about everything that I just said that's wired into the brain of a man, that says you need to get away from women. They're dangerous. They're witches, right? They're monsters. Get away from them. You're challenging that because that is what's wired there. But it starts with that. When I'm going to search for porn, I want to be here as long as possible. I don't want to do it for 2 minutes or 1 minute. I want to do it for 30 minutes. And in the beginning, it's impossible. The body just responds. You want to keep doing it for longer. You're trying, and very likely you'll just basically have the orgasm and it'll be over. But if you just keep trying, this insistence and wanting, I want to be here a long time. There's this intelligence in the body and the mind, and when you say something like that, it almost begins to respond. But again, it's a process. If it was wired, you're rewiring, and it's difficult. It takes time. There's fear and there's things that you will feel. And so that's basically how I would recommend to heal this. And everything goes back to the truth. What is the truth, right? So if you're masturbating and you don't even notice that you hate the woman because it's not obvious in the beginning, right? It's like, but it actually is obvious because let's say if it's gone, this hatred and this fear, sex, I mean, I still haven't had sex, but it's supposed to be the most pleasurable thing that a human can experience, right? In the right conditions, with the person that you trust and all this stuff. Sex must be so incredible in the right circumstance that the last thing on your mind should be that it should end, right? When I think about this, when I imagine if I meet this the woman of my dreams or something like that, the thought is, I want it to last like 2 hours. if you have a lot of time, I want this to last as long as possible. The ejaculation is like the last thing on my mind, but that requires you to want to be there with the woman for all that time, looking at her, feeling her, smelling her, all of this. And it is strange how sexuality has to do with our parents, but as a child, it wasn't sexual. It was the attraction, like a magnet, that you needed your parents. And so I also do believe that part of this, what I just said, being close to the woman, looking at her eyes, smelling, all of this is similar to what you wanted, not sexual, with your mom. You wanted to hug her. You wanted her to hug you, to be close to her, and maybe smell her. But again, it's not sexual as a little child. And when that didn't happen, or when you felt this like rejection, that's what was wired in the brain. And so it's so difficult to look at a woman that you think is so beautiful, so attractive, and you want to have sex with her. But then this memory of it's so painful when I want it so much. I want to be wanted. I want this woman to embrace me fully, not just want to have sex with me, but that her whole energy is, I just want you, right? Which is what we all wanted from our mothers, to be fully and completely wanted, right? So it's very interesting how things that have nothing to do with sex, I don't know if it was Freud or somebody that said this, like everything goes back to sex, because as an adult, it's a big part of your life. But your sexuality is all coming from, and your issues with sexuality are all coming from the past and your childhood. So I think that's very interesting. So thank you so much for listening. And I think I'll make these videos more often now. Okay, have a good one.